Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brighton Area Schools Board of Education meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Sacramento roll call, please.
Mrs. Urbane. Present. Mrs. Tierney. Here. Mr. Storm.
Present.
Mr. Small.
I'm here.
Dr. Krebs.
Here.
Mrs. Marks. Here. Mr. Meyer.
Here. All right, that moves us to the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Stahl, supported by Ms. Tierney. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do have a recommendation, please. I'd like to add.
Motion to amend. We have to amend.
Motion to amend the for action section. I'd like to add an Article E, approval of the purchase of the gas tanks for the Transportation Department. And letter F, I'd like to move Spencer playground equipment PTO that is now and for future to for action. And then, of course, we would eliminate the Spencer playground equipment in for future.
Okay, we have a motion to amend by Mr. Stahl. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Marks. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval of the amended agenda signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. Moves us to the superintendent report. Dr. Outlaw.
All right, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to invite Mr. Delaney forward. He is here with a group of students that took part in an automotive activity contest and did extremely well. And I'm going to let him tell us all about it as our shining stars for this evening.
Come on up, guys. Good evening. My name's Rob Delaney. I'm the automotive instructor at Brighton High School. We're here tonight to recognize the incredible achievements of a group of automotive technology students who recently competed in the 2 West Regional and Michigan State Skills USA competitions. Skills USA competitions are organized to test the professionalism and skill level of students enrolled in various career tech ed programs available through secondary and post-secondary schools. On February 21st, the Automotive Technology Department took 7 students to compete in the Skills USA 2 West Regional Automotive Technology competitions held at Washtenaw Community College. Those 7 students competed in one of 3 separate automotive technology competition segments consisting of maintenance and light repair, master technician, and automotive electrical. There were 210 students total competing from the 2 West region, with 70 each students competing in each segment. Of those 210 students competing, students enrolled in the Brighton High School took 2nd, 4th in the Master Tech competition and 3rd place in the automotive electrical competition. I would like to add that Brighton was the only school in the region to have more than 1 student place and win in the top 4 position of any of those segments. So we cleaned house. The training and preparation leading up to the competition was a collaborative effort between the BHS Automotive Program, local business partners, and advisory committee members, with a big shout out going to Mr. Conley for his time and expertise. Students that won the top 3 positions of each segment of the 2 West Regional competition won the opportunity to compete in the state competition, held in Grand Rapids at the DeVos Convention Center. On Friday, April 11th, 2 of our students and myself loaded up, headed to Grand Rapids for an amazing weekend of Skills USA state competition. To say that it was To say that it was a humbling experience is an understatement. The competition was very well organized and the scope was absolutely huge. There were thousands of young professionals competing in the various skilled trade segments from all corners of our great state. The competitions were held Saturday with an awards ceremony to announce winners on Sunday. Regarding the Skills USA Region 2 West competition at Washtenaw Community College on February 21st, I would like to congratulate the following 3 young professionals for their successes. Eric House won 4th place in the Master Technician competition. Joe Mertes won 3rd place in the electrical competition. And Evan Penner won 2nd place in the Master Tech competition. At this time, I would like to recognize our 2 high-achieving young men who won the opportunity to advance to the state-level competitions. Joe Mertes, a junior from Brighton High School, with a 6th place finish overall at the state in the electrical technician competition. So 6th place right here. I would also like to recognize Evan Penner, senior at Brighton High School, with a 4th place finish at state in the Master Technician competition. This is 1 position away, everybody, from being up from a podium finish and a chance to compete in the national competition. So, excellent job, gentlemen. Excellent job. Proud of you guys. Super proud of you guys.
There we go, good one there. All right, thanks. Congratulations, great job.
You want to jump in? Get a picture?
Sure. Where do you want this stuff to drop off? Right here.
All right, here we go. Terrence, feel free to come on up here. Or let's get out there. I want you in there. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Good job, man.
One more thing I'd like to do. We have a car show coming up. It's a student-led car show coming up on April 10th. Sorry, May 10th. Yup, May 10th. That's a Saturday at Brighton High School. It's kind of turning into a big deal. And I'm going to leave some flyers with the board. If you guys need more of these, feel free to reach out. I'll send you an email with them.
I've invited some. Thank you.
Yup, that's a formal invite for everybody in here. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. And on behalf of the board, congratulations to all of you gentlemen. We're very proud of your accomplishments. You obviously are remarkable students, and we're very proud of your successes at the regional and state level, and wish you the best of luck in all of your future endeavors. Thanks, guys.
Okay, and our second topic here today is an opportunity to share some of the results from our facility survey that we did. We had nearly 1,400 people that filled out this survey. I was going to share a little bit of the feedback on this. Mr. Jones will talk a little bit about the ever-evolving capital master plan, some of those projects, and then we're going to turn it over to the board to ask questions, to talk to one another, to have dialogue around projects. And this is a conversation that's been going on for a couple of years. The previous board talked a lot about facility needs. This current board has talked significantly throughout this year. We've had 3 separate focus groups, one focused on transportation, and we had another one that was focused on technology and safety, and then we had a third one that was focused on operations during the course of this year. And with that, I'm going to give you some of the results. So this will be in my newsletter that will come out Wednesday evening. But actually, Mrs. Marks did a great job, so I appreciate, she took the results and put them into a nice format for everybody to be able to view. So I appreciate that, so thank you for this. So these are some survey results. Again, about 1,400 people filled this out. These were 10 projects that had been previously identified during discussions at board meetings and facility meetings as areas of interest within the district. Everything from playgrounds, orchestra storage, band room acoustics, transportation lot, science classrooms, air conditioning for gyms at the high school, middle school, dedicated gymnasium or cafeteria for Horning Spencer, some furniture upgrades, and then elementary space, meaning classroom space primarily. So those were 10 projects that we've kind of explored that aren't on the essential list. There's other ones like HVAC and replacements that are there, but these were ones that we've talked about that are more choice to that. So this gives you a little bit of results. The gray bars, obviously that's your seen as high priority in science rooms, that gymnasium air conditioning and elementary classroom space, those were seen as high priorities, as well as a dedicated gym or cafeteria potentially at the elementary level. But all of these had varying levels of interest, and these are some of the priorities that are set. Does anybody have any questions on this chart before I go to the next one? So in addition, we had I'm going to make sure I get it here. We also had the opportunity to hear from our people with general comments. So let me go to this next here. Sorry, I clicked out of it by accident here. So this is going to be the capital master plan list. There is another list here that I'm going to try to pull up very quickly here that has some of the comments from our folks on this topic here. So there it is, okay. So these were some of the ones that were identified in the comment sections of our feedback survey. So I took things that were the top most mentioned. There were ones that had as many as like 45, 50, and there's other ones that had single digits. But these were some of the ones that were put on the list. Everything from turf, the Maltby-Horning parking lot. Anybody that's been around the board knows that we did a facility study. We looked at that a few years ago. That is seen as a high priority. A lot of the things that were already on the list, like the orchestra, band, choir facilities, the BCPA, those were things that continue to be prominent on the list. Playgrounds. There are things about like HVAC at the high school level. The chiller is quite old, and I think we have some high school folks that can attest to the variations in temperatures in our rooms. Things like water quality, some safety investments, things like sidewalks. We're already working on this Horning sidewalk project. But these were some of the items that were on that list from the 1,400 people that filled out this survey. Are there any comments or anything regarding this? Board members have this, and this will be out for everybody in the community in the newsletter on Wednesday. Any questions on this before I turn it over to Mr. Jones on the master plan? Okay, so next up, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jones to talk about this capital improvement master plan. I think there's some tweaks to it. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. It is adjusting as things are evolving with feedback and whatnot. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jones.
Correct. So we've done some upgrades since the last time you've seen the master plan, but I want to go back and give a little bit of background before I move on to what the upgrades that we've made. So the first thing is this is a working document. It is constantly changing. We're adding things. This is not something that's like we're going to stop tonight and we can't add anything to it. So this is always evolving. It has what the source of all this is the facilities committee. The state did they hired Plant Moran to do a facilities study of every single school district in the state, and we were given about a 45-page report, building by building, of their assessment of our facility. So we took their input, put it in here. And then just any other projects that come up, everything else that we're working on, when projects come up, we put it on this list. We try to put in our best estimate of a price. When we can't, or what we base it on is if we're doing new construction or remodeling, we have gone to actually the estimator at AUK Construction to give us the current going rate per square foot, so that we use that as a basis to come up with some of our estimates. You also notice in here there's a few lines that are blank, and that's because we don't have any estimates yet because they're fairly new projects and we just haven't had time yet to come up with a good price. So once we get those prices, we will put those in. And then the next step is so what we did to make a little bit of improvements in the plan is that I added 4 sections of funding, and I applied all the projects to the level of funding that we are estimating that they would come from. For example, the board approved an $8.9 million transfer into the capital projects fund, and so I applied projects to apply to that $8.9 million. And what I stayed away from is, because I know we've been talking about a bond project, is that a bond is for construction and remodeling and things like that, so I put more smaller capital outlay items into the $8.9 million capital plan, and then left the others, the large construction projects, to go into under a bond category. So there's a total of all the projects that we could use a bond to fund. There is a category for food service because some of our capital outlay is for food service, and they have their own fund balance, and they actually have a pretty good fund balance right now, and so they can pay for anything that's food service related will come out of that fund. And then there are some routine capital items that we have been funding out of general fund, so I included those also under general fund. So as you look at the plan, you will see that each project falls under one of those 4 categories. Questions?
So at this point, we were thinking of just turning it to the board to talk to each other, ask anything that you need from us, but we were hoping that you would have a chance to talk with one another and perhaps ask any questions that you might have.
So just to start out, we established a timeline for the sequence of the meetings as we work through this discussion and ultimate decision about whether we were to vote to approve or put to the voters a sinking fund or a bond or potentially nothing. Obviously, we've had the various presentations from different stakeholders and the groups regarding facilities, technology, the projection of the capital projects that we would, as a district, would be looking at over the next 5 years. We've had the presentations from Baker Tilly regarding the various financing options, whether it be a bond or a sinking fund, the timing of when we need to make decisions as a board with regard to either of those options. And ultimately, from all of those discussions, it culminated in obviously having the survey that we put out to the community, from which we then elicited the feedback that we have here this evening. Tonight was an opportunity for us to receive that feedback from the surveys. Obviously, having had the input from Baker Tilly at the last meeting, getting the updated financial information regarding the costs that we currently have with regard to those items that are on the capital project, the future capital projects list. And the plan was that we would, after having had all that information, then at our next meeting, the first meeting in May, that we would vote as a board to decide whether to put a bond out for a vote to the residents in November of 2025, or alternatively to put a sinking fund to the voters in the fall, in November of 2025, or do nothing. The timing with regard to the May meeting is important, particularly with respect to the bond option, because in order to put the bond on the ballot in November, we will need to submit our application. We'll need to prepare and then approve an application to the Department of Treasury of the projects that will be the subject of the bond that the State Department of Treasury will have to approve. That has to be done this summer. So in order for the administration and our consultants to be able to put together all of the information that's needed for the application to the Department of Treasury, they really need us to make a decision on the May meeting. So tonight, we don't necessarily need to debate if we're going to have a bond, which of these projects we want to include as part of a bond proposal. As Mr. Jones indicated, there's obviously some missing components. It's still a work in progress. And quite frankly, there may be things, I know that there's been some discussions at like the facility committee meeting. There may be things that are not even on this list yet that one or more board members would like to see considered to be included as part of that bond, if the bond is the route that we as a board vote to pursue. And so, from my perspective, what I would envision, and I think is the prudent course of action for us, is to, we can talk about, and ask questions about any of the information that's been presented, not only tonight, but maybe as a follow-up to the Baker-Tilly presentation, to talk about conceptually these ideas, and then ultimately, what I would like to see happen, if each of the board members are at a spot where they feel comfortable indicating that they're inclined to support putting a bond to the voters, or if they would prefer to have a sinking fund, or if they'd prefer to do nothing. I think it would be good for us to have that conceptual conversation tonight, because ultimately, if we do have a consensus, particularly if it's with regard to putting a bond on the ballot in November, I think it would be good for us to be able to give the administration that direction, primarily because they've got some homework to do, obviously, with regard to some of these topics for which we don't have cost estimates. As I indicated earlier, there may be some other items that the one or more board members would like the board as a whole to consider to put on the application to the state, and that would enable us time if we have a consensus as to go in a particular direction, like the bond, we could then build a timeline out between now and then to identify if there are any additional projects we would like the administration to look into, to give them the ability to be prepared to do an investigation regarding cost estimates, so then we come back in May, we've got more of that detailed information. If in fact the decision by the board is to go to a vote for a bond, at that meeting in May, we will have to identify the projects that and the items that we want to include in that bond proposal. And we can talk about the logistics of how that will unfold at the May meeting. I think the most efficient way to handle it is to have the master list that would be the recommendation, and then we could then have any individual board member identify an item that they may not be willing to support to basically make it a topic of discussion, so that maybe we end up with 10 items and the others are going to be approved, but we're going to have a debate and discussion about any of the items that one or more of the board members want to talk about, whether that's really what they and potentially the other board members want to include in that application. So, having said all that, I would open it up to anyone to share, their thoughts at this juncture regarding their support for the bond route, the sinking fund route, or neither of those routes. Who would like to start? Ms. Urbane? Alicia, would you get your, it's okay.
We saw, you put a list up of what some of the community members said is their top priorities. I saw a few of them in the project list. I'm assuming they're all not there, or I didn't compare. Okay, I was just curious if they had made the list or not made the list.
And I guess just not to come back to it, because I had the same question. So this list doesn't reflect all the feedback from the survey.
Right, the preliminary ones we included, the second one went out, we reminded everybody for a second time, the
So is the intent then to?
Yes, that is absolutely. That's why I said it's a working document, because we're always able to add.
And then some of the things, when I was looking at some of the raw feedback, like, for instance, the turf, it said turf for baseball and softball field, but some of the comments were like turf and team room or turf and lights. Like, is that all encompassed in that, or are we, because just turf made your list?
I think the team rooms is on the list as well.
Yes,
It's a separate category on that
Okay.
master list. I separated the two. I tallied all the stuff out. I
Okay.
mean, you got the raw results, but yeah.
I was just wondering how that was.
Yeah, they're seen as separate.
Okay,
Yep.
go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Storm?
So, Dave, just a couple clarifying questions. You referenced in your opening remarks the funds that we as a board authorized to be moved over in the capital fund. It was just under 9 million, wasn't it? Wasn't it like
8.9.
8.9? And so I guess, how is that being factored into all of this? Like, I've been meaning to ask, like, just at a high level, when we talk about the full scope of multi-year projects versus taking funds that we already have as a district at 8.9 million, how are you ultimately thinking about that 8.9 million relative to the breadth of all of this?
So if you look at if you look at the plan.
Yep.
There is a column that says capital projects fund, and if you notice, the total is about $8.9 million.
Yep.
So at this point in time, the only projects that have been officially approved to be paid out of that fund is the turf, and that's about 2.4 million. So the other dollars were just, I applied items to that fund in order to come up with the 8.9 million. And like I said before, I stayed away from large construction projects because those are more bond related. So what I focused on were larger ticket items that we wanted to take care of relatively soon because we had the funds set aside. And I applied it to that fund to come up with the 8.9 million. But besides the turf, nothing is set yet until the board will designate projects that will go in against that fund.
So I guess, would there be any logic in us as a board identifying or providing direction to the administration on the balance of the funds that we already have, making that clear, and then ultimately establishing the scope of what we would
Yep.
want to do in the
Yep.
future?
This was just my attempt, and it's obviously something that can be
Yeah.
adjusted.
Yeah, right, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and I know that the number has, and the cost estimate associated with each of those items has been itemized in that column for the capital projects fund, which ultimately gets to all but 17,000 of that 8.9 million. So, yeah, certainly if board members would prefer to have a reallocation of projects be handled or financed through the existing capital fund versus what's identified, that's certainly fair game.
Because I think the next, just how I'm thinking about this is then the next step after that would be, what are we expecting as a district to be in our capital plan in 2026, 2027, 2028, outside of asking taxpayers for any additional money, and then laying that over our list of needs, taking out what those funds will cover and say, what's left over, and what are the funds then that we really truly feel are we compelled to go ask the taxpayers for additional funds beyond what they're already paying with tax revenue that's coming into the district?
Yep, makes perfect sense. Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Stahl?
First off, I'm gonna say something I've already said a couple times. I think that the need is here. The community has come forward with some more need that maybe we didn't know and some that we've already known. We've been on field trips to different areas in our district, looking at the BCPA, et cetera. We know there's needs in just about every part of our building. And I've said this before, this may be the very last time, it may be a very unique time that we would have the ability to do these things and finish these things with literally no tax increase to anyone in our tax-paying area. And we have the charts and we can go through that. That would be part of the teaching process if we decide to go this route. And we can make that anything we want and give them as much savings as we want. So I think we owe it to this community to put it out there and let them vote on it and make their decision. And we've got plenty of time to play with the numbers and figure out what we actually need and what we would actually ask and be able to let them know that before we get to the point of an election. So I think it's an amazing time right now to finish a lot of things that we've put aside or never been able to get to. There's no doubt about it, Brighton has got some of the best facilities in Livingston County, in my opinion, and I can back that up with a lot of trips through the buildings, but I've been through a lot of the Livingston County facilities, and we are blessed by this community. And I just feel we need to finish this, and at the most crucial time when we don't have to ask them for more money out of the pocket. That's all I've got.
Anybody else?
I have a question just about, this is more for administration. Are all of administration's needs or identified needs on this working document? Specifically, I'm talking about food service, because we have benefited over the last couple of years with having an overage and funding, and we've been able to use that to purchase equipment, flooring, furniture, et cetera. So just as an example, that may be changing, the funding for food service, right? We may not have the luxury of having that kind of money in the next couple of years that's left over. So are there things that aren't on here, that aren't coming from the community, but that perhaps would be coming from other departments in the district that could be added to this?
The one area would be food service, and the way it works with food service and their capital is at the end of the year, when their fund balance is finalized, then there are regulations from the state that says how much fund balance you can have. So if you exceed that, you must submit a plan to the state on how you're going to spend it. So that will be done over the summer. So we're kind of right ahead of where that's going to happen. We're finishing up spending it for this year. So when we get our final fund balance, Richard will put together a spending plan, send it into the state, and we'll have that more towards summer, beginning of fall.
So I guess my follow-up question is then, beyond this year, are there needs coming down the road? Because we have been relying on this to a certain extent, right? That we're having this balance at the end and we can then use those funds. So are there things in the buildings potentially that would need to be replaced in 3 to 5 years where we are going to have to spend the money to do that?
There definitely could be, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I would mention that on the top list where we talked about a dedicated gymnasium, we've also had some conversation, would it be better to do a cafeteria? We have a student nutrition group that's been talking about maybe making some revisions to those cafeteria facilities, particularly at elementary level, and Mrs. Tierney could talk about that. That might be something down the road that's worth having some conversation. So that, I would say that's an area of need that probably wouldn't be covered by the balance. It might be larger than what the food service fund can provide.
Mr. Krebs?
Okay, so thank you for this, Mr. Jones. When we first had the presentation from Baker Tilly, was it the last meeting? I'm totally, no, like a couple meetings ago. I was thinking that the bond made more sense, or the sinking fund made more sense. But as I'm seeing this list, I see that the need is much more than I thought it was. And I see that getting the money from the sinking fund is going to be very slowly coming in. And I feel like right now in the bond project list, we have a list of $24 million. This is above and beyond the $8+ million in the capital outlay projects. So it seems to me like a sinking fund, it would really delay getting a lot of those projects. Is that, am I understanding this correctly?
You're absolutely right. We would have to be definitely planful on how we timed everything out based upon how the funds would come in with the sinking fund.
So then, where a lot of these projects are, you know, a couple $1 million, I think with the sinking fund, we were talking about getting just a little over $1 million. How much we're getting each year?
It was
For
about $3
3
million
to
a
4,
year.
3 to 4 million.
It
So,
kept growing.
so we keep growing. But this list, I mean, even if we say 4, you know, 4 million, that's 6 years thinking. So we're already going to be needing some new stuff. So it just feels like the sinking fund might be a little slow for our need. Now, one of the things that I think with the presentation that we saw is they were like way over what we needed. So that made, I think they were going for like 100 million. It was like, this is way more than we need. But if we scaled it back, I think that the bond is going to be more of what I'm thinking that we need versus a sinking fund. So that would be my response to that question.
Any other questions? Ms. Urbane?
I was just going to echo their comments. I think a sinking fund is theoretically a better financial proposal to do because you don't have to have everything laid out. You have a little bit more flexibility, but it just seems a little bit short-sighted with what we need right now and some of the needs of the community. So in overall, you know, the tax rate to the community is about the same. So it just seems foolish to me to vote for something that's going to get you less money when the tax rate to the community is the same. I tried to find ways to justify the sinking fund in my head multiple ways, and I just have not been able to do that, and we wouldn't be able to do some of the big projects. And has recently visited both Northville and South Lyon on their athletic facilities. You know, I can say that while we're ahead in a lot of our facilities, we're definitely behind in many others. But I also want to make sure it's not all about athletics. So what, I guess I'm asking the facilities committee or Mr. Jones or even you, Mr. Myers, what is the process for us making sure that we get stuff on the list that we want to talk about?
So if ultimately as a consensus as a board, we want to continue down the road of a bond, and with the idea that then on the May meeting, we would be voting, if we're ready. I mean, obviously, we have a little bit of time because June is the date, I believe, that June, July. Yeah, that we would have to have that application finalized and approved by the board. So if, for whatever reason, we didn't have a good handle on the cost estimates or the scope of the specific items, at that May meeting, we could have a special meeting in late May or just put it on the June agenda meeting. What I envision this process entailing would be that, obviously, as Mr. Jones indicated, some of the additional items that were a follow-up in the latter part of the survey have not been included in this list. I would ask, and I think that's the intent, is that those will be added. There will have to be some cost estimates.
And we're waiting for some pricing too. So there's items on here that don't even have dollars of.
Exactly. In addition to that, as I indicated before, I think it's important for any of the board members, if there are any particular topics that a board member would like to have considered to be added to the scope of the bond, I would ask that board member, and we can come up with a date, but I would like to have it, you know, as soon as possible, but certainly before the May meeting, to give that information to the administration so they can add it to the list, and if time allows, they can even do some further investigation on the approximate cost, because obviously we're going to have to then decide this is the scope from a amount standpoint, tied to obviously each of the individual items of what we want to do. I will add, for example, like on this list, there in information technology, it says devices, firewalls, recurring. It has a total of 388,500. I mean, that's woefully low. I mean, when we had the presentation back in August, over the next 5 years, it was like $6 million or $6.5 million. So that number right there, in my mind, is at least $5 million to $6 million light. And you know, what we've talked about, and just to kind of circle back with what a comment that was raised earlier, that, you know, when we had the Baker Tilly presentation and they looked at, we could raise $200 million, the idea was not we were targeting $2 million. That number was generated based on the premise that if we took the existing millage rate and leveled it off at 4 mills over a period of time, that would generate $200 million. Now, I don't think there's anybody up here on this board that thinks we need $200 million, but it was the exercise that they prepared in order for the board and the community to understand how the millage rate over projected time. Yeah, absolutely. From that meeting, I had asked for a further analysis with regard to a scope, just for conversation purposes, based upon, a 2-series or 3-series sale of bonds, and I just picked $60 million. That information, I don't know if that's on the, is that on the overhead, Dr. Outlaw? I know it's in the information that was, so based on that, the two different scenarios, one would be a 3-series bond sales of $20 million. This for basically it would take effect in 2026. The second 20 million would be 2028, and the third 20 million would be 2030. Or alternatively, if it was a 2-series bond sales, 30 million in 2026 and 30 million in 2028, I believe it is. It still obviously both of them get you to the $60 million. There is the graph that's in the documents that's before the board, which shows the corresponding difference. There it is. Thank you. So if you were to have a 2-series bond election, which would be 30 million next year, 30 million in 2028, you would be at 4 mils out to, what is that, 2029, and then it would drop to 3.09, 2.38, et cetera, as you go out in years. If it's a 2-series sinking fund, same analysis. Actually, I said it backwards. I'm sorry. It was 2030 where it would go to 4 mils and then drop off. The 3-series, the 2-series would be at 4 mils through 2029 and then drop accordingly. So all of these scenarios, even at $60 million, will still, cap at 4 mils at different, different time frames, and continuously tail off. I think it's also important to understand that, we're in this position in part. I know that sometimes people might say, well, we may have a little bit of bond fatigue, or, we haven't had a sinking fund in the recent past, but I think it's important to understand that we're in this position to some degree because when we had the 2019 bond, part of the 2019 bond was because the sales were really refinancing the bonds that we had from 2012, because we were in a much worse financial position in 2012. We had a worse bond rating, the interest rates were higher, so our bond obligations from the 2012 bond sales were much greater when 2019 rolled around, and our bond rating was significantly higher, our financial stability was significantly greater. We were able to refinance those at a lower rate. So our lower millage rate already at this stage is partially a function of the fact that our district has been good stewards financially, since 2013, 14, over the last 10 years. And so we're fortunately in a position now where we're able to capture some of that savings from a lower interest rate and lower financing debt service that we can now put to the benefit of our students and obviously our district, with the various projects. So I think that's important to keep in mind as well with regard to how we're looking at capturing some of this financing opportunity. Having said all that, I am also inclined to support the bond route. I was, like Ms. Urbana, initially I was more leaning towards a sinking fund, but I do believe that as we've dialed into some of these projects in more detail, it's clear that there's some real opportunity here for us to do some exciting things. Obviously, what's already on this list is going to make a significant impact for the betterment of our schools, our programs, the BCA, the BCPA, the athletics, the elementary schools, obviously the infrastructure items that we still need to deal with, and frankly, and as I indicated, that I think is one of the things where this really needs to be beefed up is the technology, because let's face it, the technology needs are always going to be there, and that's always something that every district that is doing what they should be doing is properly budgeting for, and really the best way to do that is through something like this, so that we always are able to hopefully be at the cutting edge of technology for our students. So I'm in support of going the bond route. I know that the others have, I guess, is there anybody here that would prefer not to continue pursuing, looking at a bond, and obviously doing more due diligence as far as what would be included in that scope of the bond that we've discussed, and obviously putting a price tag to that?
I think I was the last one to speak, but I'm in favor of the bond as well. I echo the sentiments of Mr. Stahl and Mrs. Krebs, so
Okay.
we need to let.
All right. Mr. Urbane?
Just one more point of clarification. When you mentioned technology, you also had devices in there. And while there's a special provision in the sinking fund to allow for devices, I don't believe it's allowed in the bond. So the bond would have to be all of the hard technology in the building,
Yeah.
not the devices.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just making sure, because
Sure.
he mentioned devices in it, and devices wouldn't be allowed in the
Yeah.
bond, they would be allowed in the sinking fund.
President Meyer, could I ask a point of clarification?
Sure.
So we talked about what to add to this list that we're going to price out. We said everything's going to be added. We had many comments where they were single ideas from one person in the public, and there's all kinds of different ideas that are on there. It's a long list of things like ice rinks and indoor tennis courts and things like those type of things. Do you want us to price out everything, or do we, I think that's kind of what we were thinking. But I'm hearing that everything's going to make it on the list. So I think everything that the board has talked about, we want to make on the list. I'm just looking for clarification of what you want added to the list that's not already there.
Right, I think the question, and thank you for asking that clarification, was that there were the specific topics that were being considered for which feedback was solicited that may not already be on the list. They're definitely going to be added. What I would suggest is,
Okay.
if on the comment section is what I'll call it, I mean, if that would be what I would say, that if there's a board member that wants to have that be considered, I mean, if there's a board member that wants an ice rink considered to be part of, and that would be, I'm just using that as an example, but that was one of the things that was in the comment. If a board member wanted to have any particular item that's in these comments being considered, then, I mean,
My 2 cents, I think we owe it to the community to be good stewards of their tax dollars, and I think, I want to commend you, Dr. Outlaw, because I was a huge critic a few years ago about soliciting feedback, asking for feedback. Thank you for asking the community to provide feedback, and thank you to the 1,000 plus stakeholders in our community who responded to this survey. I think it's preposterous to try to even capture and consider hundreds and hundreds of individual wish list items. We have really good feedback from the community. Let's act on that feedback. I'd ask again, Dave, that you could help us understand, take the 8.9 million, help us understand what we should expect for capital in the out years from 2025, 2026, 2027. Whatever that gap is that's left over, we should overlay on top of this survey and what the board has, I don't want to say unanimously, but there's a lot of support on the board to act on these improvements. And then let's stay focused there and not have this thing go crazy.
One more question. On the survey, are we able to tell what things were a priority for, say, staff versus community versus or students? I just want to make sure that we can't use this money for salaries, I've said that before, but I want to make sure if there are some needs from the staff that they really feel are important, that they may not have gotten as many comments, but we are addressing those two. And I mean, even if that's just, we need to upgrade the teacher's lounge, we have to do something to make sure our staff feels appreciated and important too with this bond money.
I have one request, just in relation to funding. Over the last several years, there have been a lot of grant dollars, and I'm going to go back to the food service as kind of an example of that, but other things that may or may not be continuing down the road that we've accessed to subsidize a lot of our costs, I think, in the district for certain things, security being one of them. So if there are items that administration thinks could potentially be necessary moving forward that we would need to fund ourselves, if those could be included as wish list items maybe from administration, so we can consider those as a whole too, I think that would be helpful.
All right.
I have one item that I didn't see on here that I would be interested in getting the cost of. Perhaps it's included in the square foot pricing down below, but the SMS Family Consumer Sciences classrooms being upgraded. I think that should be something that could be looked into too. I don't know when the last time that was done, but I was in there recently and everything was kind of struggling a bit in operation. So just something to consider.
Okay. All right. That concludes the superintendent report and moves us to the call to the public. This is the opportunity for anyone here who would like to address the board, the opportunity to do so. Our rules allow you to 3 minutes of time to address the board. Dr. Krebs will be keeping track of time. When you have 30 seconds left in your comments, she will present the yellow card indicating the 30-second warning, and when your 3 minutes allotted time is up, she will show you the red card, and that will be the conclusion of your time slot. Our protocol is to fill out a index card at the rear of the room and deposit it in the box to the left of Dr. Mosier. So if you haven't already done that and you wish to address the board, I would ask that you fill out one of those cards and place it up there. So the first card I have is Todd Day.
Hey guys, I'm Todd Day. I teach at Brighton High School. Used to go to Brighton High too. I used to go to Brighton schools. All right, I'm here tonight to highlight how peaceful it is outside the board office. As a 25-year teacher and member of the Brighton Education Association, I've seen some ups and downs of negotiations and teacher contracts, all of which have been earned and never given. Never in all my blissful college days was I told about the politics of teachers' agreements and what goes into making them what they are. They never tell you about holding picket signs or walking sidewalks or using bullhorns or wearing unity shirts, working the contract. Have any of you ever had to do that to get a cost of living increase? Just wondering. I've done all this and more, knowing our pay levels are much lower than those outside the teaching profession with similar or in many cases lesser degrees. I know Dr. Outlaw has a doctorate and is paid handsomely and deservedly so. One point I would like to highlight about the upcoming negotiations is the use of a lawyer negotiating for Dr. Outlaw. Recently in Fowlerville, they instituted the use of a lawyer to help negotiate their contracts, costing the district and taxpayers approximately $100,000. That's lost to the general fund. And as an English teacher, just trying to get a novel for our classes, like at $15 a book, that's 7,000 books. 7,000 novels that we could use over the next decade that would cover us. Or I could buy a new well for Hilton Elementary. So $100,000 does go a long way. It seems like plenty of wasted money that could potentially be saved if Outlaw were able to do the own negotiating with the teachers union that he already gets paid to do, handsomely, as previously mentioned. Having a lawyer raises concerns of motivation and actually getting the contract completed by the fall. I think a good lawyer might soak up all the fees they could, because $100,000 for Fowlerville sounds kind of foot-draggy, you know? I think heading into the summer with negotiations hanging over our heads, we professionals are all dreaming of returning in the fall rested and somehow more handsome. Let's take care of this contract quickly so we may focus fully on our students come the fall. And thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Christine Kafkakis.
I don't even know if I need to introduce myself, but I'm Christina Kafkakis, and I have 4 students in Brighton area schools, a junior, a sophomore, a 7th grader, and a 4th grader. We've lived in the district since 2015, and prior to that, we were a school of choice family. My children have been involved in the BAS music program since elementary school. Each has participated in voluntary music enrichment and/or extracurricular programs. My junior and 7th grader are fortunate enough to have Phil Johnson as their choir instructor. My sophomore has been playing the cello since 5th grade, and my 4th grader will be in the band at Maltby. Ooh, finally band. This past weekend, I was privileged enough to attend all 3 performances of Anastasia. My junior is on stage and my sophomore is backstage. On Sunday, we brought my 87-year-old mom to attend, and she loved it so much that she wants to come back for a second time. In addition to being a mom to 4 musical children in the district, I'm also a member of the Brighton Choir Boosters and vice president of the Orchestra Boosters. The district has a rare opportunity to impact the future growth and success of our music programs, and I would like to put the following request into public record. A dedicated temperature-controlled space for orchestra students with rehearsal spaces for soloists and small ensembles. This would support growth and would make repairs and maintenance of the instruments less costly. Updates and upgrades to our BHS band room that are necessary to address student safety concerns and support growth, especially in terms of noise levels and sound isolation. The BCPA requires crucial improvements. Some of the things are the orchestra pit, fly system, and a shell that meets current performance standards. Finally, I would like to see consistent and sufficient educator and instructional staffing, a full-time orchestra teacher to support students at BHS and SMS. More specifically, a music educator who is a string specialist music teacher. I would like to request a full-time choir instructor for Scranton. My junior and 7th grader have had their schedules affected because we only have 1 choir instructor, as awesome as he is, PJ, for both Scranton and BHS, as well as a limitation in course offerings. My sophomore student schedule has been affected by the fact that we have only 1 orchestra instructor for BHS and Maltby. Thank you.
Thank you. Sid Atkin.
Forgot my glasses. Sid Atkin, I have 2 kids at Brighton High School, senior and a freshman. I'd like to talk about the bond. So as much as we'd love to pass one bond and never have to worry about school infrastructure again, it's just not realistic. Our district has at least 10 buildings, probably more, and they're getting older every year. These spaces have hundreds of active students, staff, and families every single day. They take a beating from Michigan winters, especially the parking lots, playgrounds, and sports fields. Honestly, I think that there are more cars on the high school during the weekends than there are during the week. Brighton area schools are the backbone of our community. In the 20-plus years I've lived in Brighton, the city has only grown. And who can blame them in for moving here? You know, it's a great place to live. But in all that time, we haven't built any new schools. The biggest upgrades I can think of have been the football field, the field house, the STEAM center, BHS. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, sorry. Meanwhile, our orchestra, band, and performance spaces haven't kept pace. These programs are overflowing with talented energy, but the facilities don't reflect that. Last weekend and this weekend, we're going to have over 6,000 people attending Anastasia at the BCPA, and all coming out with rave reviews. The public clearly supports the arts. It's time for our infrastructure caught up with the enthusiasm. Students in the arts work just as hard and pour just as much heart into what they do. They deserve the same kind of investment we've made into athletics and STEM. This bond is necessary, and honestly, the next one will be too. Our school needs don't disappear, they evolve. The good news is, as all older bonds phase out, so next year, taxes will actually expected to go down no matter which option is chosen. My kids will have graduated probably before most of these new projects are even finished. But I want the next generation to have the same opportunities that mine have had, or even better. This won't happen if we're complacent. So I strongly encourage everyone to keep supporting our schools. The Brighton difference is only as real as we let it to be. So if you haven't gotten your tickets yet for Anastasia, I please suggest you do so. They're going quickly, and it's wonderful. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Phil Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Phil Johnson. I teach choir at Brighton High School and Scranton Middle School. I also direct the Scranton Musical and the Brighton High School Musical. I'm a bit sleep deprived today, but we've had 2 fabulous shows and 3 fabulous shows, and we're looking forward to 4 more next weekend. We hope you'll come in and see what we do there. I'm also a parent of 3. I have a freshman at Brighton High School. I have a 6th grader at Maltby, and I have a 3rd grader at Spencer. Brighton Musical Theater invites 6,000 people to see the best of what we do as a district in the fine arts each year. This is one of the most visible activities that BAS offers. We need to continue to support these young folks who are in the program, and those folks get their training during the school day in choir, band, and orchestra. It is vital that we make a push for a bond and that we look at the facilities throughout the district. We need to really consider the facilities that are unsafe for band students to be playing in at Brighton High School, that do not exist for our fledgling orchestra program at Brighton High School currently, and that do not exist anymore since they've been taken away at Scranton Middle School. Not only am I the choir teacher here, but I'm also the Brighton Orchestra Booster President, because my kids love music and they want to be a part of it. And it doesn't matter to me if they sing with me, or if they play with Joey Swinkie, or if they play with Jennifer Evans, or they play with Stephen Fernandez, but I want them to have music as part of their lives. We value it in our family, and I know we value it in our community. And we need to give every kid the opportunity to have a safe, meaningful experience. So I'd like to ask a number of things of you. 1, a dedicated temperature-controlled orchestra room at both Brighton High School and Scranton Middle School. BCPA improvements, including a new orchestra pit, fly system, and band shell. Brighton High School band room upgrades to improve safety and sound. And then consistent staffing, a full-time secondary orchestra teacher, stable BCPA management, additional adult employees at the BCPA. We need a full-time Brighton High School band teacher. We need a full-time Brighton High School choir teacher in order to give these kids the programs they deserve, and in order to make sure that we can continue offering the Brighton best to everybody who comes through these schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Joseph Swinkie.
Hello, I'm Joseph Swinkie, and I'm your new band director at Brighton High School. I have met a few of you, and not all of you, and one of you had the distinct privilege of knowing me when I was a 14-year-old Algebra 1 student in Ida Public Schools. I wanted to just take a moment to say hello, because I haven't yet to many of you, and I'm not from here. And I'd like to tell you why I'm here, since I'm not from here. I am not just a recent hire, I am a recent taxpayer. I just changed my address to Jenny Way, which is a 10-minute walk that way. And the reason that I left a job I liked a lot to take here was because people really care about Brighton area schools. It's evident. I went to college with people who went to Brighton area schools that still talk about the experience they had, not just in music, but just in general. And people turn up for stuff. You sell 6,000 tickets to your musical. You have thousands of people in the stands on both sides for your football games. And that's because the school is the cornerstone of your community here. And a lot of my friends, like me, are 30 years old and buying their first homes, and I bought one here where the tax rates are higher than all my friends because of what I get for my money. I will have children someday, and when I look at the facilities that I get to work in and the people I get to work around, I think, yes, I will happily pay those taxes because of what I get for my money. I'm a little biased because I work there, but I'm pleased to not only be working in a district where there is investment and regular investment and keeping up with being on the cutting edge of education, but I'm also pleased to pay the taxes. Frankly, my fiance works very far that way, and we could have moved closer that way, but we didn't want to. We wanted to be here where we know that our tax dollars are put to good use and we're getting a lot for our money. So I appreciate you considering a bond proposal to allow us to stay on the cutting edge of music education and our facilities in general across the board. Thank you for providing for us as a staff, and thank you for being good stewards of our money. I know that if we were to go forward with a bond proposal, that we would use it well, because I could see when I came here for my job interview that you have historically done so with investments like the BCPA 30 years ago and the beautiful athletic facilities that you have, and Scranton Middle School, which is gorgeous. So thank you very much for everything, and I look forward to serving your community for a long time.
Thank you. All right, seeing no more cards, that concludes the call to the public portion of our agenda and moves us to, for action, item A, the meeting minutes of April 14, 2025. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Moved by Dr. Krebs, supported by Ms. Urbane. Any discussion?
I have a comment. What's that? Under superintendent, excuse me. Try this again. Under superintendent report, under part B, sorry, I'm losing my voice. Usually it's beginning of the semester, not the end of the semester. The student who performed for us was Violet von Buskirk. Did I say that right? Buskirk. But, so Violet V, not Violet H. Thank you.
Okay. With that correction, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to item B, Human Resources Report. Mr. Anastasoff.
All right, good evening. We just have a few things on the report today. So we have one resignation to approve from Brighton High School, and then the other two are from our shared time services, our layoffs that are actually due to a position no longer available to them at their placement before, and there is no current positions at the time. So recommending layoff, and they are aware of those layoffs being recommended tonight.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the Human Resources Report as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Stahl, supported by Mr. Storm. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to item C, the Hawkins Playground Equipment. Who would like to address that?
I will start with this
Mr.
one. So at
Jones?
the last meeting, we presented 3 options. So we've been working with the PTO at Hawkins on putting in a new playground, and the PTO has some funds that they would put into the project, and we were just asking, we have 3 different versions based upon different surfaces of the playground, and so our ask is for the board to decide which of those 3 options they would like to approve.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve one of the 3 options as presented?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the one with the full rubber padding.
Motion by Dr. Krebs. Any support? Support by Ms. Marks. Any discussion?
One of the things I wanted to say, I know we were looking at the difference between the full rubber support and the partial, is the accessibility. I think it's important for our district to have a 100% accessible playground for the children in the community. The cost, I think, what is it, Dr. Outlaw? You said it was 70% with the hybrid model. 70% of it is going to be the rubber. So the cost upkeep between the two is not going to be that difference, because we're still looking at 70% of the rubber will need to be maintained. So it's the initial outlay, which is about $40,000. And I know $40,000 is a substantial amount, but if you look at what we've invested in other things, I think it's really important. I mean, we've just approved, and I approved it too, the $2.5 million in athletic fields and turf, that I think to say an additional, excuse me, just a second, an additional $40,000 for the children at Hawkins, the elementary playground, for it to be accessible is worth it to me.
I would just say you've got my full support, full and complete support.
I have a question. Did we have any response from the? You got to turn your mic on. I just need to be voice activated. Have we had any response from the PTO that is working on this? Is there a preference in their direction? Just, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they want to move forward, and I think they would be thrilled if it was the fully accessible.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for looking at the other alternatives and getting costs so that we could compare to. I appreciate that. And I am in support of the full rubber flooring.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to item D, SMS BHS trip request to Quebec, Canada. Dr. Mosher.
Yep. So at our last meeting, we brought forward the trip request to Quebec, Canada. I didn't hear any questions, so we're looking for your approval tonight.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the trip as presented and requested?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Stahl, supported by Dr. Krebs. Any discussion?
Not really discussion. I just want to say thanks to everyone involved. I think it's such a great thing that we offer these types of experiences to the students. I know they really come back. I've never heard anyone come back and not just rave about it, and how it not just changed their perspective, but how it influences maybe what they study in the future. So thanks to you and to all the staff involved in keeping these available for our kids. I need to thank the staff. Just so you know, I do not go on this. I've done field trips. It is a lot of work, especially out of the country or any type of overnight. And if anybody's ever done a DC trip, an out-of-country trip, you can add to that because it is a lot of work on them. So I just appreciate them doing those things.
All right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to item E, the added item for the fuel tank at the Transportation Center. Mr. Jones, would you like to
Yes,
explain
so
that
as
for us?
part of, well, do you want it,
I
You
can
tell
take it
me.
if you'd like. Before you have a list, these are prices that were obtained for this piece of paper in your packet. There's the only stipulation on any of these. I mean, obviously there's the least expensive and the most expensive. I do want to call to note on the first one, the lead time is 24 to 26 weeks. That's a concern. I don't know why that one is so much different than the other ones. However, the second one, with not that much more accounted for as far as funding, is only 12 weeks. That's important to me only because I know what we're up against. We have to understand we do have an inspector that has given us until June to get a contract to have these installed. This does not include the installation. They are still going to get that packet to us. There was not enough time to get enough bids for us for tonight. But getting this equipment, as you can see, it takes a long time to get it. My concern is we won't have it in time, and we could be stopped, given a stop work order at the bus station if that happens. So the stipulation is if we have a contract with someone to install these by June, he will continue to allow us to operate at the bus station. So I deal with these inspectors for a living, usually very workable, but they do have deadlines and they do have to make a point at some point, and I don't want to see us get shut down over there. So I would highly suggest that we award one of these. If we are thinking about the least expensive bid, then I need some serious clarification as to why it's going to take so long for them to get it than it does the others, or we just go forward with Hughes Tank out of Texas.
All right, so do we have a motion to approve the purchase of one of these tanks?
I will make that motion.
All right.
I would suggest the Hughes Tank from Texas.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Stahl to approve the purchase of the Hughes tank proposal. and supported by Ms. Tierney. Any discussion?
I have a question. Has anyone attempted to reach out to Stan Wade in Ohio and ask why their lead time is as quoted?
We have not. We got these quotes late this afternoon.
No problem. So for $20,000, I think it'd be worth our while to just have that conversation. And maybe there's a way we can establish a motion or revise the motion to say that if they're able to meet the lead time that's required, we would.
I'm sorry, or just pass it not to exceed, because they are a low price.
Right.
That, we can certainly do that.
A lot of times in quoting, and I live in this space for a living, lead times are all over the place. And if they're, busy and just the standard quote term goes out, they might be able to provide what we need in the 12 weeks. Additionally, I don't know that if the guidance is we need a contract by June, you can sign a contract and commit to a project that's funded and satisfy a requirement that we have someone under contract that meets this requirement. But to me, $20,000 is worth a phone call.
We can certainly do that.
All right, do you,
Well, anybody else have any questions before there's?
I have a question. This is just clarification. This is the purchase of the fuel tanks itself, right?
Correct.
So installation would potentially be done by just another
Contractors.
company, another contractor would come in?
and that's still coming. They're gonna have a proposal for us when they can get that together.
And no even general cost estimate? I mean, is this going to, because I think originally we were estimating this was going to be around 500,000 total, right?
Original estimate was 550,000,
Okay.
all in.
Okay. Is that reasonable, given these fuel cost estimates? I mean, is that what it takes to install?
No.
Yeah? Okay.
It's all permitted.
Okay.
It's fuel and ground.
Well, isn't the significant part of the cost too, the excavation of the
Remediation of
underground?
the
Right,
underground, right?
which is completely independent of.
Because these will be above ground.
That is correct.
Yeah, the new ones, right? Okay, thank you.
And these are two tanks, these are this 20,000 gallon and 10,000 gallon for gas and diesel, is that? Correct. And regardless of, and they're the same tank, so regardless of whoever we end up contracting with, there won't be an issue with specs or any incompatibility. So just a question though, Mr. Stahl, you mentioned that the state is requiring the contract to be executed by sometime in June. Is that the contract with the installer?
Yes.
So as long as we have a contract signed with an installer before June, whether this takes 12 weeks, 18 weeks, 26 weeks, right, yeah. So I'd be more inclined for that reason alone. I mean, it would be nice to get it in earlier, but as long as we meet the state's requirement for the deadline for the contract with the installer, we've protected ourselves.
I believe that to be true, but I think that could be interpreted also that you get the work started as soon as possible. We wouldn't want to be doing this when school opens up again, because that's when we're going to
Just
have.
to get this done over the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
To
get
the
it.
work done over the summer.
But
That's why lead time is so important.
Sure.
And I can certainly alter my motion to, and perhaps you can help me with the wordsmithing, but I'm thinking first, before we commit to this company, the Hughes Tank one, we have the conversation to see if they can meet or make better the shipment on that. I don't know how they can make it better, but, and then if not, make it a stipulation that we go forward.
So I would make a motion to amend the motion and say that if we can get a commitment from Stan Wade to supply the tanks in, I'm just gonna say 14 weeks or less, then we go with Stan Wade. If Stan Wade cannot commit to supplying these tanks in 14 weeks or less, then we go with Hughes. That would be my motion to amend.
That would be my motion.
Okay.
Second the motion to amend.
All right. Is that good? All right, so it was my motion. Mr. Stahl, I guess, seconded. All right, any further discussion on the amended motion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. All right, that moves us to item F, which is the Spencer Playground equipment. That was item B for future action. Mr. Stahl.
Yeah, the reason I put this on here is there's nothing else more for us to approve or participate in. They are fully funding this, and I just didn't see the need to make them wait for another meeting if they can get started on this right away. That was my only reason for putting it here. They are fully funding it at $60-some thousand. They have their own installers, and they want the wood chips underneath it. So we have nothing further to offer at this point, and I just don't think we should hold them up.
I guess just a question.
Let's have a motion first, Andy. So we have a motion to approve the donation requested in the amount of $60,665 from the Spencer PTO.
So moved.
All right, moved by Mr. Stahl. Support by Ms. Urbane. All right, any discussion?
So, just continuing the conversation from a minute ago, I think as a district, we should give strong consideration every time we invest in a new playground for a school. And in this instance, obviously, the PTO is funding the equipment and the wood chip base, but, would there be an avenue where we as a district could pick up the cost of the fully accessible base?
Can I add to that, please?
Yeah.
I talked to Brian at Mid-States, who's doing this project, and he said that they're looking at that as a phase 2. So they've already considered that. It would just be a phase 2 after doing the equipment.
What does that mean? So they're going to put all the equipment in, put wood chips in, and then down the road, take the wood chips out? And
If necessary.
So let's do it the right way, provide all of the students that we want to have access to the equipment, to have, have that full accessibility, and just pick up the delta as a district, right away.
Ms. Urbane?
If we had students that needed it at Spencer right now, I would definitely be in that camp, but we currently don't. And I'm worried that if we just do this now, by the time we do need it, if there is somebody there, it'll be outdated. And Mr. Stahl was also looking at some mats that we could put out if needed in the short term. But I just worry that it gets outdated by the time we do need it because there aren't students that currently need it there.
But I mean, what if next year there's a student that moves into the district that goes to that school that has, a physical impairment that, where they need to have accessible playground equipment? Wouldn't it be desirable for us as a district to be able to provide any potential student in the future who has a physical impairment access to a playground that they can access and enjoy like a student that doesn't have a physical impairment?
But this playground isn't going to have accessible equipment. So you would just be putting in.
That's my point, though. Why wouldn't we, if there's $60,000+ of funding from the PTO, the equipment is available. You go to any of the big equipment manufacturers that do school projects, they have the equipment. You're just identifying what options you want. So they'll build anything that you want. So if the PTO is willing to pay $60,000, I'm saying, why don't we as a district make that playground fully accessible and pick up the delta, including the base, which today is being proposed to be wood chips?
I have a question. Just for clarification. So my understanding is that with regard to Hawkins, what was approved is going to be a new playground area. Correct? Is that correct? It's not going to be a replacement of, right, it's going to be brand new with full accessibility per our agreement. As I understand it, what Spencer is proposing is just a replacement of the existing equipment with wood chips, not the construction of a new playground that would have the full accessibility that Hawkins. So I guess.
Aren't they pulling out the old though, Roger?
Pardon me?
Aren't they getting rid of all the old equipment and then putting new?
In Hawkins or Spencer?
At Spencer.
I'm not sure. Well, that was part of my question. I'm trying to understand.
Spencer has one piece of equipment that they've purchased. It's one. It's just a singular piece of equipment. And I'm not sure that it's replacing anything or if it's just being added to the existing playground. So I believe am I correct on that, Mr. Jones?
I am not positive on that.
Is there anything there that is accessible currently? I mean, I think
Most of our playgrounds are pretty dated.
that's what I'm thinking. I feel like we should just have, all playgrounds should have something accessible. That should be a bare minimum.
I don't disagree with any of this. I just think we do we have one building where we are making it completely accessible, and no child can be denied to go to that building. It doesn't matter where they live in the district, they can be put there. And then, this might be, I guess the thing about this is we're not spending our own money on it.
I
Somebody
understand
else
that.
has got it.
I understand that,
But I
but-
mean, the whole premise of like accessibility is like a parent whose child needs access to a playground that has accessible equipment would be very insulted if we told that parent, your children's gonna go to a different school to have accessible playground equipment. Like, if we're gonna ultimately make an investment as a district in a playground, why would we not want to help the PTO buy the equipment and the base that makes the playground at Spencer fully accessible for the next 10 to 15 years? Like, why would we not want to do that?
Well, I agree with you. I just, my question relates to whether we should do what we're doing at Hawkins. So if the PTO, my understanding is they're anxious to get this approved because they want to have this improvement done before the start of next year. And obviously, the parents who have contributed to that that PTO and that equipment, I mean, they're the ones that are there. The ones that are fourth graders are no longer going to be there after next year. If we're going to accomplish this, we probably do have to approve this for their existing playground, but to me, it doesn't preclude us still having that conversation of, well, then we should do for Spencer what we did for Hawkins and have it now a separate designated, fully accessible area. Right? I mean, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think we can do both. The fact of the matter is that with the Hawkins PTO, they wanted to contribute their money to this new area that we're going to add to make it fully accessible. This PTO they want to replace what is currently there sooner than later, so they can, obviously have those upgrades. But I think we should consider looking at then whether, funding, putting a fully accessible, similar type investment at Spencer so that it has that same accommodation.
I guess, just a suggestion to throw out there, would there be any value in speaking to whomever is leading this effort on behalf of the Spencer PTO and ask them if there was a commitment from the school district, from the board, to fully fund a new playground at Spencer Elementary that was totally accessible? Would the PTO be willing to partner with the board to do that? Brand new, fully accessible playground in lieu of the $60,000 single piece of equipment that Dr. Outlaw referenced.
I'd like to piggyback on that. I'm fine with that. The problem is I don't want to, and Roger's kind of alluded to what I'm trying to portray here. I don't want to hold this up. This could be, there could be a kid that's going to graduate that school and not get to participate in it and help raise the money because we're holding it up for something that we're going to do no matter what.
All I'm saying is, let that person who's leading the effort on behalf of the PTO say, no, we don't want to hold, we don't want the board to support this brand new, completely accessible playground. We'd like to move forward with what we've proposed, and then that's great.
So we're calling this additional equipment. The new playground would provide additional equipment for the younger students at Spencer Elementary. I think we really need to take into account every piece of equipment we're considering now. We should be thinking about accessibility. It's not we think about it later. We're thinking about it now. We need to be thinking about it at all times, is accessibility. Is this equipment even accessible? I mean, that's one of my questions that I have is, I don't understand that. I guess I need a little bit more information. I need to know that this is going to be accessible, that children, if they want to go outside and play with their friends, they can be standing next to their friends. They may not be on the equipment, but at least they know they can be there next to them. Maybe that's all they can do.
I would agree with that. If we were spending the money, we're talking about somebody else's money.
But we're in charge of the district. We're in charge of the playground.
I agree, but we can add that at any time that we want.
But why can't, it makes no sense to add it and to do this and then not take care of it right away. We're saying that it's not our priority then.
We can do it right away. You're absolutely right. But let's not pass this.
No, I don't want to approve this without the condition of accessibility.
Fair enough.
That's important to me.
I guess I would like to see consistency across the elementaries and all the way through Maltby. If we have playground equipment and we're making it a priority, at one building, I feel like that should be applied to the other buildings as well. To Mr. Storm's point, you never know who's going to be, and while I certainly appreciate all the effort and the work that's been gone into the PTO and raising this money, and I understand that those families want the equipment to be put in, I do think that we need to be considerate as a district of what's allowed to be installed on the property for the students in those areas. So I'd be in favor of exploring what it would cost to make it accessible and not just approving it as a one-off and then next year having this discussion about other additional equipment that we need to put in there.
I agree with Ms. Marks. I believe that this is a 3-phase project for Spencer, and so it might be worth getting some clarification on what the other two, it sounded like the second phase was to put in rubber, but what the third phase was, so maybe we can get a better picture of what it is that maybe they wanted phase 3 to put ADA compliant. I'm not sure. So it's worth discussing a little more.
Dr. Allen.
One other piece, in that capital master plan that Mr. Jones shared, there's a significant amount of money that we had suggested to put in for playgrounds. We were thinking of accessibility being a major part of that investment, just so you know that is something that we were thinking. I think it's like $250,000 a building that we were looking at. So we're definitely on the same page. We were definitely looking, and we were thinking that would be a great investment as part of the capital master plan and potentially a bond. So just wanted to share that.
Just another point of clarification, I've heard some people say ADA compliant. Our playgrounds are not required to be ADA compliant like our bathrooms are. So it is not a legal issue. We can say ADA accessible, but it is not a compliance issue where we would get, not approved or something, or funding withheld because we didn't comply with it. It is not a compliance issue.
So I have another question. So originally, this was on for future action. It was moved up to for action. Was there any communication from Mid-States or someone from Spencer that indicated that if this wasn't approved tonight, that it could compromise the ability to do the work? I mean, I'm assuming that they're going to be doing the work at Hawkins this summer. If we were to either expand the scope of what was going to be done at Spencer or approve what has been proposed at Spencer at the May meeting, are they going to be able to get the work done, whichever scope that may be during the summer?
I didn't have any discussions with Mid-States about the timeline or about any requirements that we had to have it by a certain date.
I am absolutely at fault for the reason that it's here tonight. I just didn't see the reason for it. But if there are this many concerns, then I'll remove my motion.
I know that the PTOs, both at Hawkins and Spencer, are concerned that these projects are taking a long time. I know that Hawkins expressed concern that I would just say that they're very happy that the Hawkins project is moving forward, because I think they're concerned that these projects are not going to be done over the summer. So that's from the parents. I did not talk with Mid-States.
I understand that, and I really want these I want to get these. I want these for the children, but I think we also want to think about all children, and we want to make sure that we have accessibility. So that's a concern of mine.
Okay, so we still have a pending motion.
I will remove my motion.
So you're going to,
I withdraw.
All right, so is there any other motion, or do we want to just table this, keep it basically for future action, get the information that we've discussed this evening, and then bring it back for action at the next meeting? Pardon me?
Or when it's ready.
Yeah, or when it's ready. Mr. Bain?
I just want to make a comment. I am in favor of accessible equipment, and we should be doing that. But I am concerned that we are denying the kids that are there potential use of this playground next year in favor of them getting accessible equipment for no one that needs it right now, that's currently there.
How do you know that a student won't move into this district?
I'm just saying for somebody, there is nobody that is currently there today that needs it.
So that justifies not installing accessible equipment?
I don't know that it justifies denying the kids that are there, all of those kids, access to the equipment for something that we might think in the future moves in.
Who's stated that any of this discussion is going to deny a child the ability to use a playground next year, including what's being proposed? Like, all we're saying is, in the next 24 hours, call the individual who's leading this effort and say, we as a school board fully support putting in a fully accessible, brand-new playground at Spencer Elementary School. We will be happy to take the 60+ thousand, join it with district funds, and put in a brand-new, fully accessible playground without wood chips. And if that person says, we as a PTO are not interested, we'd appreciate the board's support to move forward with this project, that can be brought up at the next meeting in 2 weeks, and we move forward.
And I didn't make a motion. I am just stating that I am concerned if we don't get this done on time, we are denying all kids for something that we think might hypothetically happen in the future.
It was on for future action
Yeah.
today originally, though. So I think as long as we can have this available, hopefully by the next meeting, we should be in good shape. We can vote in May and turn it around as was originally planned with the timing, I would guess, right?
I would hope so.
Okay.
For one clarification point, so the piece of equipment that you see on page 51 is what they have vetted, that the PTO vetted with Mid-State, and they've been working on this for some time. If this is not a fully accessible piece of equipment, is it the direction that they need to find another piece of equipment? Now, I'm just asking for clarification of what we're relaying back to the Spencer PTO.
Well, I mean, procedurally, they have all, I mean, per our policy, we are to decide whether we're accepting this gift. That's what's procedurally before us. So, you know, the question is, I mean, I don't know that we can say, well, we're going to reject this gift because of the reasons that have been discussed. But, I mean, I think that then goes back to, is there, although this may have been fully vetted, is there another alternative that they would equally appreciate and enjoy, which does have the accessibility that we would financially support, that also meets the time frame that we are hoping to achieve, you know, during the summer? I mean, there's a bunch of steps in that question, but I think that before we make any decisions about that, that's what we would need to have a better understanding. Because if ultimately the Mid-State says we can't get this, for whatever reason, we can't provide accessible at this location with this equipment, we can do something different like we're doing at Hawkins with a completely separate, fully accessible, and we could do that separate, fully accessible playground this summer while we're doing Hawkins, then maybe we go forward, sure, yeah, we'll approve this and we'll deal with the separate project. But I mean, until we get that information, obviously, we can't answer that.
I don't know how many people have seen like like this playground structure, and I'm not saying this to be derogatory, but it represents kind of the traditional playground modular system that gets installed. If you go out online with Google and look at like landscape structures, it's an actual name of a playground company, Landscape Structures. They're based out of Minnesota. They have the most amazing, fully accessible playground equipment for students and youth, and it would just be an absolute joy to find some form of equipment that mirrors that. And I think the folks that are involved in this project, if they knew the board would support that level, that vision, and do it in a timely manner, I think everyone would be really happy with the end result, everybody. So, just my 2 cents.
Okay, any further discussion? And Mr. Jones, Dr. Grillo, any other questions from the two of you? No? All right. Okay, well, that concludes the for action portion of our agenda, moves us into for future action. Item A, resolution to designate district's LESA election rep. So, this is part of the LESA election of, there's two, is there two vacant seats, Dr. Outlaw, I believe? Three? Okay. And so we as a member, a voting member of LESA, will have to designate somebody to attend to vote on behalf of Brighton. So if anyone is interested in volunteering, let me know or Dr. Outlaw know, and you will, there probably will not be an objection. All right. We've handled item B. Item C is the back carpet. Mr. Jones.
The district published an RFP to remove and replace the carpeting on the first floor of the Beck Building here. We had the mandatory walkthrough was last Friday. We had 3 vendors walk through, and the opening of the bid is May the 7th, so we will have a resolution on the board meeting on May 12th as to our selected vendor.
Okay, any questions? All right, moves us to item C, Maltby grade level principal, Anastasov.
Yep, I can handle that. So we just have this on for future action because our goal at this point is at our next board meeting in 2 weeks is to have a recommendation for the Maltby grade level principal. Just to give you a quick oversight of what we've done so far, is posted internally on March 24th, and then added the external on April 7th. The posting ended just recently, 5 days ago, on the 23rd of April. So we have conducted 2 sets of screener interviews so far on April 21st and 24th. We had 14 candidates that were brought in total to these screener interviews. 6 were recommended to move on to what we're considering round 2, or the Maltby team interview. So this will take place at Maltby and including Maltby staff. The interview itself led by Dan Ayton. Ms. Tierney will be there as the board observer. Parents will be involved in this. So to have them have a chance to look at the 6 candidates. 1 did recently decline the invite, but there will be 5 that will be, and we'll be conducting those tomorrow, actually, from about 4 to 8:30 now, maybe. So it'll be a long evening conducting those, but an important one. And then our final, after we get the feedback from that, we'll be looking at a round 3 with Mr. Ayton and the cabinet to narrow it down to that 1 to bring it to the board in a couple weeks. So we're right on schedule. Where we need to be.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from any of the board members? No? Okay, that moves us to item E, student handbooks. Mr. Anastasov,
Yeah, I
you
can
again?
handle that too. So we put out to our principals that we're looking for changes to be due in 2 days from now. So on the end of the day on Wednesday, if there's any changes to the handbook or student code of conduct that they want to make. So there is a good possibility this may stay on the for future action in 2 weeks, because we're going to be bringing these to the policy committee, which meets on the 12th as well. So unless we're really efficient and our turnaround is good within a half an hour, we'll probably keep this on the for future action. Within that, have the policy committee have some recommendations, have you have a chance to view them for full approval in June.
Can I ask a question? Is this for the high school, only the high school, or all of them?
This will be all of them that I'm asking for, any building in the district.
So I know in the past, we always had the high schools on a different schedule because of their printing. Are we now on a schedule that they're all doing them at the same time? Is that?
So we can discuss, I'm not aware of a different schedule at this point, but that can be.
I don't believe we do print like the old days. I think everything's electronic now, so I think
And
it's a
do
lot
we have
easier.
just one elementary for across all the buildings, or the different elementary buildings have different handbooks?
There is, it appears like one main one they work from, but there is one separate one for different buildings because they insert their own building-specific items in there. But there should be consistency with items such as code of conduct and some of those type of things that should be universal across the grade levels.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No? All right, that concludes the for future action portion of our agenda. Moves us to board committee chair reports, community recognition. Anyone?
Just a reminder, we've heard it a couple times, but this weekend, go see Anastasia. You will not be disappointed.
All right. Well, that concludes everything on our agenda this evening. Our next meeting is Monday, May 12th at 7 p.m., and this meeting is adjourned.